This is Ross Payton with Role-Playing Public Radio. This is RPPR episode 190.
Woo!
Outcasts in role-playing games and RPGs, really. I don't know if you know this, but that's what we talk about here on Role-Playing Public Radio. We talk about role-playing games.
Whoa. When did this start? Is this a recent change?
Yes, it's we're trying to cash in on the 5th edition of the most popular RPG in the world.
Oh, that's some clever marketing there, Ross. Good job.
How you doing, Tom?
Super duper.
You're not here for every episode, but every episode you are here is a treat.
Yay, I am a treat.
You are a treat, Tom.
I'm a delicious little chocolate cake.
Okay, well, I didn't specify.
I think
it's kind of a metaphorical treat. But
I guess more of a like kind of vanilla cream cake, maybe.
Okay, sure. Whatever you want, man. Anyways, yeah, we're gonna be talking about the idea of the outcast. We're talking about the outcast in fiction and in tropes. As something to play with in role-playing games.
I might have explored this a couple of times.
Yeah, this has come up because we just played a game of Mutants in the Now. Mutants in the Now is which you can listen to the Russian Job, the adventure I'm talking about, up on RPPR Actual Play. It is a retro modern RPG. It is inspired by Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Other Strangeness and After the Bomb. From
one of Palladium's better games.
Probably their best game, I would say.
Yeah, I gotta agree with that.
Yeah, but it updated. It took the idea of it and made it into with its own system, which has similarities, but a lot of differences.
Much better designed.
It's a lot better designed. It's been fun. It is a bit of a crunchy game. Anyways, they did a sponsored actual play, and because they're kickstarting Mutants in the Next right now, and you should check that out. But anyways, the reason I thought of this Outcast is because in both games, you're outcasts, like the TMET. You're not really members of society. You have to live in secret. As mutant animals.
I mean, in the game, you can have a background where you are open.
Yeah,
and you can. But the way I'm doing it is, and most games do it is, you're not.
Yeah, because you could be a mutant animal that looks like a human, except with cockroach antennas or cat ears, or you could be a cat girl, a literal cat girl in the game, and thus people think you're human, but you're really not. The idea of being the outcast, and this is a topic that I've come up in Base Raiders as well. Obviously, the underground, the non-human underground, the robots and the aliens and the magical creatures all have to live literally underground
because they're not human, but they're smart enough to resent not being treated that way.
Yeah, they don't have legal rights, and that's a big thing in Base Raider. So it's a concept I'm intrigued in, the role-playing opportunity. So that's what we'll be talking about in this episode. But first, we do have a bit of news.
Yes, we do.
The RPPR Patreon has some stuff going on. Patreon.com/RPPR. We just finished our 6-episode series on Castle Greyhawk, TSR mega dungeon, 12 levels, including, actually 13 chapters, because there's also a surface chapter about the castle itself before you go into the dungeon. Anyway, Tom and Aaron and I delved into the bottom.
We did, didn't we?
Yeah, and
it's
confronted the random monster generator.
It's a module.
It's a module. And
it is. That's what I will say about it. It's a module.
One of the episodes is up here on RPPR as a preview, but if you want to get the whole story, it's the full series is now on our Patreon, so be sure to check that out.
It is always quality Patreon content.
I'm not sure what we'll do for next month. I had an idea for our next episode of After Hours. So I'm working on it though.
Is that what you bought all the knives for?
Well, that was going to be a surprise, Tom. Thanks. Now I'm going to have to change it.
You never told. You need to tell me these things.
Well, okay.
What am I supposed to think when I see 400 knives stacked in the corner?
Well, maybe they're just party favors. All right. Have you thought about that?
I'm not much of a party guy, but I would go to this party.
Exactly. But now it's ruined. Now I have to give.
I'll buy you some more knives.
No, it's too late, Tom. You ruined the surprise.
How about some swords?
Anyway, I'm also trying something new for our $10 reward level on the Patreon. I've been offering I run 2 online games, one shots for patrons at that level, and that's been a lot of fun. But I want to see if maybe we can change things up. So for this month and for June, I'm offering one-on-one sessions for $10 and up patrons, and these are consultations about RPGs. If you have something you're working on, if you want advice for running a game or coming up with a scenario, or anything like that, feel this is for you. So
we are your friendly neighborhood role-playing nerds.
Yeah, and I am a published author. And everything.
What?
So if you're interested in there, I'll put a link in the show notes to the sign-up post for May.
Learn about role-playing with Ross's
in June, I'll have
voice.
more slots available too. Anyways, other things. I'm remastering old actual play episodes. And most recently, Somewhere Lane, Caleb's Delta Green game. That is up on our Discord server if you back at the $5 level or above. But it will be posted to the Patreon pretty soon. I posted it on the Discord first to give feedback to see if I caught all the noise that I could remove. Basically, I'm cleaning up the background noise primarily. And
are you saying that the recording has a learning curve that we went through?
Well, also it was kind of a learning curve for me also because I just I've been putting in more work in, the audio over the last couple of years for this.
You do good work, Ross.
Yeah,
you do.
Thank you. But for one thing, now I unplug the refrigerator every time I record a podcast. I didn't used to do that. That's a big source.
Well, to be fair, there were years when the fridge wasn't near our recording area.
But it was always there.
I agree, it was always there, but I mean,
I just didn't care. And it was also, we played longer game sessions. Now we play shorter game sessions. So I feel okay plugging the refrigerator. So anyways.
Oh God.
Yeah.
I have flashbacks to the fourth ed game and how long those sessions would take.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But we've done Bryson Springs, I think Candle Cove.
I still love that was one of my
this is our fourth in our series.
I still love that one of my scenarios started it.
Yeah.
It makes me happy.
Oh. So, check that out. If you're a $5 patron or above, you can download these episodes, listen to enhanced audio quality, remastered.
Zoom and enhance.
Yes. So those are just some things. And again, the RPPR patron helps. Literally, it pays the bills and keeps this project going. I mean, we're doing a weekly podcast now. The main series, which is not trying to make it monthly. It's been hard, but
yeah. Well, you're doing it.
Yeah. We're doing it right now.
And we love you all.
We do. So we should dive into the topic. So
head first. Let's do this.
Yes. Outcasts. I might
have run a few games like that over the years.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite character types.
Really? Okay. You know what? That does make a lot of sense.
Actually, I remember said my favorite character type is the monstrous hero, which does lend very well to Outcast.
Right. So I guess we should start by defining what we're talking about when we say Outcasts. And for me, when I think of Outcast is a social role. It is part of the community. It is the other. It is not the enemy or the rival.
The alien.
It's
different. It's
not necessarily the alien. It could be any number of things, but it's the person who is shunned. It is the person who is excluded from things. He's the person who in some ways, the outcast is the example of this is what happens if you don't follow our society's rules. We'll make you an outcast. So it is useful to the community to have an outcast, but it is obviously not so fun to be the outcast yourself. But it is not innate, it is not something. If you have brown hair, you're always going to have brown hair no matter where you go.
You can try to disguise it.
Well, you can try to disguise it, but it's still there. Or your blood type, if you're O positive, you're always going to be O positive.
Those damn O positive freaks.
Being an outcast, if you leave that community, you go to an entirely different area, it's possible you won't be an outcast. So it's a social role. And so the whole idea in role-playing games is to contrast the outcast, what they can and can't do socially. And so the whole point, so there's different types of outcasts. There's, the outcast as basically cosmetic or flavoring, I see that a lot in D&D type games. It's kind of an edgelord sort of character background. I'm an outcast. I'm like tieflings.
Or the one guy that wants to play a gnoll.
Yeah.
In a group of paladins and clerics.
Yeah. And he makes his gnoll lawful good and, or a neutral good ranger or whatever. And he's perfectly fine, but he wants to be a gnoll. And
just because that one community got raided by a pack of gnolls back in the day, and there was a large amount of cannibalism that went on, and then your happy ass walks in.
Okay, well, an outcast gnoll would be the humans raided a gnoll community, and they found a Knoll baby at the end, and like they said, well, we can't kill this Knoll baby, so we'll raise it. But it's a Knoll, so it's going to be the outcast. It's going to be our, stable boy, basically. But he's a tough, wise, smart, cool Knoll, and he rises to become a ranger despite just being the stable boy. That would be an outcast.
Human communities don't like him, and Knoll communities aren't going to like him either.
Exactly. He's an outcast in both communities. But in D&D games, that kind of what I see a lot of, and you can tell me, is that this is more cosmetic. I'm an outcast, but like
it's not going to stop you from going on the raids and everything that's in the game.
Well, yeah, no, I mean the dungeon crawlings aren't the problem. It's when they go back to town, right? And like what happens in a lot of D&D games that I've seen is all right. You go back to town, you can sell your items and go to the inn and stay. And people might the DM might like, oh yeah, they give you some funny looks, but the paladin will vouch for you, so you can be let in, Mr. Knoll Ranger.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're at a high enough level, like who's going to stop you?
Well, it depends on the D&D setting. Some D&D settings are pretty bad.
Okay, well, yeah, if you're wandering like, the city of doors or whatever.
Yeah, sigil, yeah.
Sigil, like, okay, yeah, there might be someone that can say, yeah, you're not allowed in here.
Right, but outcasts and sigil are very different than this.
Oh, true.
A generic, like, so this cosmetic thing is more like the DM is like, okay, you can be an outcast, but I'm not, because it requires both the player and the GM to like participate in order for the outcast to be like, how big is this going to be? Like,
and also, how important is it?
Right. Like in D&D games, what I see is the outcast thing is not very interesting to the GM, and the GM's like, okay, I guess you can be an outcast, but I'm not going to like make a hassle about this. I'm not going to make you.
Maybe the GM might say like, hey, you're going to have to get your teammate to sell your shit for you.
Yeah. Well, even that's something. Like some GMs would just hand wave and say, yeah, you can go in there. They're not going to bother you. The guards look at you. The paladin vouch for you. You're fine.
Or like, oh, hey, you proved yourself when you killed those goblins.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to be very accepting because you're clearly a hero and you're working with the paladin.
Because you not being accepted is not part of what I'm doing here.
Yeah, exactly. It's not, the GM is not interested in running games where that is a major theme. Like, role-playing games, you kind of have to choose what your theme, what the story is going to be about.
Yeah, I mean, or you can have multiple themes, but yeah, you got to know them.
Right, you can't have too many themes in a story, because if it has too many themes, it doesn't really have any themes. You can't. You have to.
But you have to know what's important.
What's important in your story, and if the player is like, and this happens a lot. The player's like wants the game to be about being an outcast, but sometimes it's toxic players who are like, I want to be in the spotlight all the time. I want everyone at the table to have to deal with me being an outcast.
Like, it's the, hey, dig me.
Well, it's like, well, we can't do this because I'm too special to be let into the inn. And like, I will have to go out. And so we have to make this about my special accommodations. I have to go in the forest and
I have to go sit in the forest and brood over a roaring bonfire.
So run random encounters just for me in the forest and ignore what
and the GM like, can we just sell your shit so we can move on?
Exactly. Yeah. So that happens. And I think that happens in D&D type of games a lot. And that sucks. Don't do that as a player or as a GM. Come to a consent. If the player wants to be an outcast, that's fine. But like as a GM, you're going to have to tell them like, all right, either you make the game about being an outcast to some degree or another.
And it's this very theory that,
yeah,
I understand why I haven't got to do the character idea I've wanted to do for years.
Yeah.
Just play a ghoul.
Yeah.
But I totally get why it has to be the right game at the right time with the right people.
Right. I would have to make a game about being a ghoul.
And I would want to do that, but I wouldn't want that to take over the entire game.
Yeah. And in that case, like that's because it's a mystery investigation. All the games where ghouls exist, Cthulhu Mythos type games have all been mystery investigation games, and that's the type of game I want to run.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very hard to like balance that if everyone else is human and badges and humans with badges, that can go in and ask people questions and arrest people and get access to classified documents and all this other shit.
And then, hey, why do you have human meat in your fridge?
Exactly. Like, why do you, and then there's, the thing that smells of corpses and digs through the ground. Like that's how can I get those two to fit together? I'm
30%. I can't believe I haven't gotten to do this, and 70%. I totally get why we haven't done this.
Yeah, it would have to be a game where all the players are ghouls or outcasts. Like that's the other thing. So on one end of the spectrum we have cosmetic, hand wave, like, okay, you're an outcast, but it doesn't really mean anything. It's just flavoring for your character. It's like wearing a cool hat. Like it's a cool hat, but it doesn't really mean a whole lot.
I mean, yeah, I've seen that's some pretty. There could be some pretty baller hats.
Exactly, there can be, but like the Null Ranger in that case, he can make his backstory about that. But the GM in most D&D games on that, I think, are not going to be interested in that. So on the other hand, we have the full immersion where it's like the game is about being an outcast. And if every player was a ghoul, like you're, a group of Cthulhu Mythos type ghouls, and it's about being a cannibal and like eating people's brains and learning.
But you're trying to do a common goal.
Yeah. Now related would be like vampire, but vampire is actually interesting because vampires are outcast to human society in a sense,
but they have their own society. In which case they're outcasts in vampire society, and so we'll get to that. Yeah, full immersion games about being outcast. Now you could do it to where everyone. Now you can do a game where everyone is an outcast. A lot, not just necessarily a ghoul or a gnoll or something monstrous, but like there. Any number of motivations or reasons why a person can become an outcast, depending on the society. Yeah, ideological, political, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. And a lot of times being an outcast is a motivation for being an adventurer, especially in dungeon crawling kind of games. So like everyone could be in the D&D game. You could do a game where they're all outcasts, but they're all like, oh, you're all people who have been your noble families have been exiled for these crimes that they committed, you didn't commit, and you're innocent, but like you've lost all your money, you have all this training and power, but you don't have any,
and all kinds of baggage that goes with the banishment.
So
no matter where you go, you're like, oh, you're one of them.
Or games about Ronin, like in feudal Japan, like Ronin had special skills and weapons and training, but like they're outcasts. They lost their place in society. And so like everyone else, their new role was a wandering landless mercenary.
Or you're just waiting with, your friends for the right time to strike.
Right. Well, yeah, the 47 Ronin. Yeah, exactly. That would be, but yeah, they're still wandering landless mercenaries, which were useful. They still had a role in society.
Oh, yeah, you can be an outcast, but still have a purpose you're doing.
Yeah, so people hired them and so that's perfect for being a player character because you get to wander around and you get hired to do dangerous jobs.
Yeah. Actually, an outcast would be a great reason to be a murder hobo.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, in which case, if all the players are in the same situation, then the game is about being an outcast and dealing with it. And
totally how I'm doing Mutants in the Now right now at the moment.
Now the middle ground is like one player is not, some of the players are outcasts and some are not, and the game is about the tension between the two. Like Mutants in the Now is to a degree and base raiders can be like that, and where there's basically one or more player characters have to play the face. Like we can blend in human society and we can go out and do stuff.
I have a driver's license.
Right. Yeah. And the other player characters have to,
like foot aside, like I have a driver's license. It doesn't match anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's about the support system, like how the player characters, everyone has their own role, and like one role in the group, the niche is being the person who is the normal guy, the normal person.
The face who can go to the grocery store if you need to,
right? In which case, like that's the game is about that tension, like how they have this challenge, but only some of them can do certain things.
By the way, I thought about I could probably do an entire session of that game of just your group having to go shopping.
Exactly.
I would totally do a game like that.
Yeah. And that would be really interesting because it's making the mundane extraordinary because of our situation. We do have one person who can look human, and
you listen to the episode, but for what he is, the fact that he's the face man just fills me with joy.
Oh yeah, but he can't even drive. So like, it actually came up in the game. It kind of got we didn't actually have to go through with it, but we realized, oh, we need to get a newer vehicle, a larger vehicle to get this thing that we're going to transport at first. And I was like, okay, we could rent a U-Haul. Okay, well, you can rent the U-Haul person with a human face and a driver's license, but you can't drive. I can drive, but I'm a mutant raccoon. So like, while you rent the car, I sneak into the lot and sneak into the car that we're renting. And then after you get in the driver's seat, I'll take over and you kind of pretend to be in the driver's seat. Like it would have to be a whole kind of heist in order to just get a car, a U-Haul box truck out of the lot. Because if they see a raccoon driving the car, they're going to like call the cops.
Yeah. Who is driving car? Bear is driving car. How
exactly.
Can this be?
Yeah. And that would be incongruous. So,
or it's when you guys had to cross the bridge, or there's clearly, CCTV cameras.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like little things that you would think about in mundane life. Being an outcast can kind of make really interesting.
Yeah. Yes, I'll probably have to get like a human mask just to put on for those kind of things, and like,
and then you find out like, I'm afraid no mask is that good.
No. It would be good for a CCT because low resolution. That's all it would be used for is like passing on and all just casual glances, especially through tinted windows. Like as long as it has the right silhouette, it would be fine. Like an animal with a snout is not going to do that. So yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, it's if you're sitting in a car, you could actually do that. But if you're moving, having then that game mask of like bestial, like it's not just the way it's the way you move.
Yeah.
But if you're in a car,
yeah, exactly. So,
but I'm totally going to do more of that shit later.
Yeah. And so that's one really interesting. So there's a lot of possibilities with Outcasts.
Oh yeah, for sure. But again, it's got to be a group decision too.
Well, it has to be not necessarily the full group. It can be that middle ground.
Well, what I mean is like, but the group needs to be on board. Like, as hey, one or more players, I want to be like an outcast character. Like,
yeah,
well, okay, but you can't. It can't just be about you being an outcast too.
Yeah. We can't do the spotlight stealer who wants everything to be about them. And I think it's sort of informed by the game setting. Like, means and now is a game about outcasts. Like you're like. All your character origins, like you were raised in a junkyard, you were raised on your you lived on your own, you never had anyone to help you growing up, so you had to figure out what you could, or you grew up, you were raised in secret by a nice human and they taught you, but like that was it. Like all the character backgrounds are basically like you're an outcast to some degree.
I mean, there's one like you were actually this is kind of back in Palladium. There was you went public,
yeah,
but that could be interesting because. All right, well, if you're in a group with other mutants, like they might resent you, like, oh, you got to live out in the open.
Yeah. It also changes the setting too, because like that means that the public acknowledges mutant animals exist to some degree. Mm-hmm. So like it's interesting if you're an outcast, like a secret outcast, like vampires are secret outcasts. Like they're outcasts from human society, but they can't reveal that they're vampires. You can't go public
because the society they involve in will then exile them as well.
Well, and kill them. Yeah, kill them. That's an unforgivable sin. Also, the humans will probably kill them. Oh, you're literally a predator who preys on us. Well,
yeah,
we're not going to give you a social security number, dude. We're just going to fucking kill you. Like,
and also, like, and yeah, it's not like it was the last time this happened. Humans are really good at killing now.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, speaking of vampires, so. For example, and most vampire games are about secret societies and,
and the dirty politics and all that.
Yeah. That's kind of part of the genre, as it were. In like, for example, Vampire the Masquerade, you brought this up when we were discussing earlier, the Nosferatu. The Nosferatu are not exiled. They're not outcasts by default.
Yeah. They're sometimes treated that way, but by Camarilla law, they are part of the Camarilla.
Yeah. Like you can go into a vampire meeting, go to another vampires and Nosferatu, even though you're monstrously ugly, and they're like, okay, well, we have to deal with you.
It's like, oh well, yeah, you're in the club.
Yeah, but on the other hand, a caitiff or a thin blood usually are outcast, which means they're not recognized or they're not protected.
Yeah, they're outcasts of both societies.
Yeah, and so those are very different things. And in vampire though. And that's different than being in a Sabbat. The Sabbat would be like a rival society, and they have their own outcasts, and people that they don't like. What do they call them? Shovelheads. Those are pretty much outcasts because they're used as cannon fodder, and they're basically expected to die.
They're lucky if they know they're a vampire.
Yeah, exactly. So they're just expected to die.
I mean, granted, it could be an interesting, probably shorter lived campaign in that to all be like shovelheads that were just turned at the same time,
right? But then that's a game about outcasts because you're all like, all right, this horrible thing happened to you, what do you do now? Especially that would be really good with a group of players who weren't super familiar with the conventions, and you just kind of had to like, okay, we need to find someone to tell us what the fuck happened to us. Like we need we need help. Yeah. And how they go about that. You know?
I mean, yeah, it's like, they're probably becoming a vampire is bad enough, but when you don't have anyone to tell you what's expected of you or how to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Like what can a vampire do and what can't they do? But there are some advantages to being an outcast.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, because outcasts are typically bound by the laws of whatever society they're an outcast of, but they aren't enforced the same way or enforced at all. And also people keep tabs on outcasts to a degree, but not like they're ignored. So
yeah,
and that secrecy gives them advantages. So example, a Ronin is allowed to wander. In fact, they're expected to wander. So in feudal Japan, most people were bound to the land. Like you were.
If you were born on a plot of land, you die on that plot of land.
Yeah, exactly. You were not expected to travel. You're not expected to. You can't just get up and wander around. They can also still carry swords because who's gonna
stop them?
Yeah. Well, you'd have to kill them in order to take their swords away, and like that. And
also, that's kind of their whole business was killing.
Yeah, and a vampire outcast, a caitiff or a thin blood or whatever, is ignored. So they have a lot of secrecy. Like they aren't watched. Even the spy masters like the Nosferatu don't necessarily think they're worth spying on.
Yeah, what information are they going to reveal?
Yeah, exactly. So
I mean, so it is. Yeah, it's possible. Like in the case of the caitiff, you can. Yeah, you might be, you're not part of either society, but if you just keep your head down, you're also likely to not be noticed.
Right. So you can get up to things that other people wouldn't. Also, they have more freedom to associate with other people. Like a caitiff or thin blood could talk to werewolves or mages or some other supernatural faction without being noticed, because nobody's keeping tabs on them or as much as they are. And so like a caitiff would also feel more unbound, and also because they realize they're not part of the Camarilla, like the outcasts, like, hey, werewolves, Mr. Glasswalker tribe, sure, we can hang out, I don't care, it's fine with me.
It's like, oh yeah, I live in your territory, I wouldn't mind keeping an eye on this section over here, and
yeah,
if I can just hunt and not kill anyone, but just hunt for blood here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like thin bloods could just survive on rat blood, I think. So, like, yeah,
I think some thin bloods can even eat food.
Yeah, so there you go.
Mm-hmm.
So they have freedoms that other people of society are not bound to.
It's only after you've lost everything that you're free to do anything.
Yeah. So there are some advantages. So it's about creating those opportunities. It's a more like. Being an outcast means that the law is only there to punish you, not to help you or protect you. And so you have to so you operate outside the law a lot of the time, whatever that law is. So I think that's the key is like what you want the game to be about. And so when you bring in outcasts, you bring in all these conventions, all these, you're basically making a game about society. Like, well, the law and like who does the law protect and who does the law punish and who does and
or if you don't have a society, do you form your own?
Oh yeah, or yeah, do you use this fact that you're an outcast a chance to create your own society? And
I mean, that's kind of like another thing I did in the game. I just did is I came up with a group of factions. These are like they're beings that like they suddenly an animal is now sentient, and they don't know like, oh god, what I can think for myself. What am I going to do now?
Yeah.
And so they're not part of society because they don't even know it. They didn't even know it existed.
Yeah. That's actually a really good point. Outcasts form their own societies. And so that could be another theme. Actually, that's a really interesting idea. It would be a game where we form our own society. Like it's a game about outcasts forming their own society. And like what kind of rules they do. So that's kind of like an interesting sandbox kind of game. That would be really cool, actually. Oh, yeah. You know what? Maybe that's what we do. I could do a ghoul game where it's about making your own society of ghouls. Like, what rules do you actually come up with?
Yeah, and
how do you enforce them?
Like, also, like, what's your what's your relationship with the humans around you?
Yeah,
because I mean, they're your food. You have to be around them.
Yeah, yeah. So that could actually that would be something I would be interested in because I do like as a GM, I do like sandbox games to like. Here's a bunch of stuff that's happening. What do you do with this? Like, that's something I've done a lot. I've noticed.
Oh, sandbox games are amazing. I love them.
So a sandbox game about making a ghoul society and presenting various options. Like, what is your goal as a society? Do you try and escape? Do you try and take over? Do you try and find balance? Like, do you try and find a way to become human again? Do you try and worship the old gods and gain power that way? Or or do you become mercenaries working for whoever gives you the most money? Yeah.
Rogue mystic scholars.
Yeah, exactly. So God, no, that's a really cool idea, actually. See? Inspiration. Yeah.
I'm down with that.
Yeah. These are not the only games that obviously mention outcasts. Like I said, it's a social role. So any game can be about outcasts.
Oh yeah.
Shadowrun and Cyberpunk, the player characters are basically outcasts because they're Shadowrunners or mercenaries, basically.
Well, you're definitely not part of the corporate world.
Right. You're doing secret jobs for them usually, but like on your own terms, and you're expendable, Yeah.
And you're expendable, and you kind of embrace that.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see, what's some other games we have played recently? Let's see. Heart, the City Beneath. Obviously, because Heart is interesting because like the idea of the heart is that the people who are outcast from Spire, the city above, come down to the heart to seek out their heart's desire. That's what the game is about. Mm. So you can be an outcast and those are people who are largely outcast by choice. So sometimes it's not what society does to you, it's what you reject,
what you decide to do.
It's about a person rejecting society. Like you can choose to be an outcast, like games about hermits, people who recluses, people who go out on their own,
like biker gangs from like after the Vietnam War era.
To mainstream, but they formed their own society, so that's more like a vampire situation.
Biker gangs, just people that feel they don't fit anymore.
Yeah, that's true. But I think but they still found like their own society with its own laws and and they had outcasts too, like snitches, people who ratted on them, to the cops. Like those are pretty much outcasts from any criminal group.
Oh yeah.
Marked for death is more what happens to them. But a game, hermit or a pariah. Someone who like embraces like fuck this what the society says, I'm going to reject it entirely. Of course, then they can become a heretic. Heretic who goes against whatever is the accepted wisdom. Usually theological. It's a religious term, but like it could be political. Yeah,
most of your cults from Call of Cthulhu.
Cults and cultists. Cult leaders are outcasts, and so are but they form their own society with them at the center. Is how they deal with it. Yeah. So outcasts aren't necessarily good. Some people are outcast for a reason, but
some people it's very some people like, oh yeah, you can't go back to society.
Yeah.
You done screwed up.
Well, it's not, or you made choices. Like what you're saying, some people choose to be outcasts. They want to be outcasts because they can't stand society.
And some people don't have a choice.
So I guess that says something about like your game. Are you an outcast by choice, or are you an outcast not of choice? What's
going to be the tension between those two types of people? Like,
right?
It's like you chose to be here. I didn't. Like, well, you're here now.
Yep. So like, say like a wizard in a D&D game who is an outcast not because of their magic, but because they don't believe that the current king is a legitimate ruler. Mm-hmm. Like they would be outcast from society. They would be. And that would be interesting. So, some sort of just political thing, or some sort of like, I believe we're actually controlled by figures who are playing a game,
Oh, there he goes again.
Yeah. There's also degrees of outcastness. Like there's a difference between like the village wise woman who lives at the edge, by the forest. Mm-hmm. And we go to her for herbs to heal, but we don't let her in. We're going to bury her in the woods. We're not going to bury her in the proper cemetery when she dies, and we certainly don't talk about her. We tolerate her.
Yeah, actually, even like the mafia could be considered that too.
Well, again, that very much a vampire thing. Like it's a secret society. Secret societies are societies of outcasts because they have special rules and they don't fit in with mainstream society. And like. If you're a mafia member, people will know and people will give you a wide berth, and they're certainly going to like rejoice when something bad happens to you because like thank God that
that guy.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah, Joey the killer is got hit by a bus.
If you get violently killed, most people are gonna be like, he got what he deserved.
Exactly. And no one's going to help. Joey the killer is being pursued by a revenant or something. No one's going to open their door to protect Joey the killer from the undead monster. Like,
be like, there's like, shh, kids, just let it happen.
Yeah, exactly. So there's outcasts that are tolerated and they're useful, like Ronin or the Wise Woman. But then there's outcasts that are like all right, kids, throw rocks at that asshole. What if he shows up again? That are actively excluded or exiled because like Albrecht the Necromancer, boy, we don't like what he did to the cemetery.
Ed Gein or someone like him.
Well, Ed Gein is a criminal, is a monster. Like that's different. I think that's different. Like we have to, like an outcast is not like necessarily a criminal. It's just someone who's been shunned from society for some reason. So it's like someone who would be exiled would be someone who that we shun would be like someone who says something really unpopular, like something like questioning the order, like, oh, the sun, we go around the sun, not the other way around. And like, everyone's like, no, that's goes against what God says, like that would be an outcast. I think there's a difference between, criminals are outcast to a degree, but I think there's a difference in there. I don't know. There's a Venn diagram somewhere. So Ed Gein, he kept everything hidden, so it wasn't a social role. He wasn't an outcast at all until he was caught, and then he was in prison. And like prisoners are definitely outcasts, but we specifically put a special place for them. So yeah. There's
you said, some people just choose to.
Yeah, like we're talking about. A lot of political radicals or philosophers, or who was the Greek guy who the cynic. Do you know what I'm talking about? He lived in a barrel.
Yeah.
That guy was an outcast, but he chose to be. So yeah, all this we're just sort of talking about types of outcasts. Everything. It's just like there's a lot of cool ideas with them, but like it's a social thing. So if you make a game about outcasts, if you want to make it about your player character or whatever, you're making your game about society. We live in a society, Tom.
For now.
Wow, that was a very poignant pause there, Tom.
I had to think about it for a second,
okay.
But yeah. No, and we do, and some people are perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Others, well, I've seen people who are clearly don't like it.
So, just keep that in mind. Outcasts are it. So, whenever you make that a major theme of your game, it's about what you're saying about society, about this society in this game, and
what the end goal is. I mean, you can be outcast. Like your goal could be, I want to join society.
Right, redemption, or it could be condemnation. You've found something. You've found a way to take society down, or you found a way to make a better society, or you found a way to escape society. So it's in some way reaction to society. That's what you're saying.
Well, and I think societies are just an inherent human thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like you may hate this one, but we all very few people are true loners.
No man is an island. Yeah, so like the Null Ranger, like you could have a D&D game where the Null Ranger becomes a hero and he is redeemed. Yeah. He advances society. He like a single person. It could be about a person transforming society. Like the Null Ranger is so heroic that people decide to allow Nulls and as citizens.
Actually, there's a book I have. It's the Rifts Adventure Guide, which actually it's one that actually has some good role playing ideas and advice. And one is like the rewards for an adventure. Like if you're like a monstrous player or a monstrous character, it could just be like some children playing with you after you've done the adventure because they trust you now.
Right. Yeah. So redemption or like bridging the gap so that you're no longer an outcast. So like that could be the heroic thing. The power thing could be like the Null Ranger becomes so powerful, he takes over and creates his own society, remolds society in his image. You know, he's the Napoleon of Knolls, and he's going to make the first Knoll Republic. Or he could he's the Knoll anarchist ranger and he takes down society. Or not even anarchist, but like a nihilist. He destroys society. He unleashes the cosmic evil.
He believes in nothing, Lebowski.
Well, he wants revenge. You know, he was biding his time. He forgot the hand of Vecna, the eye of Vecna or something, and he uses it to like utterly annihilate society because he harbored that hatred so long, and he just wanted to take all these humans down with him. So,
that's what Deacon the Kobold Bard did in Neverwinter Nights.
Yeah.
By the end of the adventure, he was an epic level bard and dragon disciple, and he just went back to his tribe and then talked them into living together with the human town they were next to.
Oh, see, yeah, that's redemption. So think about what you want the story. I guess that's the final part is figuring out what the narrative arc is going to be. Now, part of it is games are collaborative, and you're not going to map this out fully, but like kind of have a sense of like, here's the path and there's forks in the road. So you're the Null Ranger, society is treating you like this. You're an outcast. What do you want this game to be about? Okay, I want to redeem it. I want to become the hero, and like everyone accepts Nulls after this. Okay, we'll do this. Okay, I want to become the Null Napoleon. Okay, well, here's what you would have to do to become the Null Napoleon.
Yeah,
or I want to get revenge.
Or like I want these people to remember why they fear Nulls.
Yeah. Okay, well, you get the hand of Vecna, then you can do this. Like in which case, so sort of maybe don't explicitly like here are your options, Mr. Null Ranger. Just kind of like as the GM's like, okay, here's here's this opportunity. You can save the orphans, and people think you're a hero. Or you can rally the townsfolk and like take down the evil orcs. They're the real problem, the orcs, and people will see you as an effective leader. Or you can
get together with the orcs,
or get together secretly with the orcs, and get together secretly with the demon. Offer up the souls of the orphans, and he'll tell you how to get the hand of Vecna. So like the same action. But the player can choose 3 ways to interpret it. And
I would say definitely don't just be the outcast. You can do like, I don't get along with anybody.
Oh yeah.
The pure.
Oh, that's a trope I hate. Yeah.
It's like, no, you just don't want to get along with the players if you do that.
It's again, a lot of that's just like a way to justify spotlight stealing. Like you're the only person there that matters.
I think I admit like playing Vashik in the New World campaign. I was the one lawful good character of the group, and there's times like, okay, realistically, I should be trying to prevent what they're doing, but I had to like, I guess I got to compromise with the story and the other players now.
No, I think that's the other thing is like what you're missing out as an outcast, and like again, we've talked about like whether this is cosmetic or this is what the game is about, but like being an outcast there should like. If you want to be more meaningful than cosmetic, imply some penalties to them. Like say like, yeah, you can't talk to those people. They're it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you roll a natural 20 on your diplomacy check. They're just not going to listen to you. To their eyes, you're a monster, and that's it.
Yeah, you are other.
Yeah, and so the player cares like, well, what do you mean I can't get healed? From the priest? Yeah, the priest won't heal me. Nope. Yeah, make consequences for you being an outcast. That are not justified. Just like, yeah, well, this is what you chose. This is what you wanted the game to be about was hardship. when you pick a game about being an outcast, you're making the game about hardship, like stuff that society is going to do to you that is not necessarily deserved. Like it's going to be bad. Maybe you deserve to be an outcast, maybe not. But like society's going to do.
But you
shit.
are.
Yeah. Shit's going to happen. It's not going to be fun for you. So
yeah, you may not have chosen to get your brain put into that robot T-Rex body.
Yeah. Oh God.
But dude, that's what happened.
Yeah. It's gonna be really hard to dial a phone now.
But not too hard to check for change.
Cops are gonna just shoot at you. Like it's gonna take a while to convince them not to shoot at you. Yeah.
I want to hear your plan of how you're going to try to convince them not to do that.
No shit. Anyways,
by the way, that was totally a movie.
It was Tammy and the T-Rex, available now in 4K. Blu-ray from Vinegar Syndrome, I believe. It's very interesting. Very. Good
It's movie.
a movie. It's a movie. Yeah. It's a very good movie.
I don't know if I'd go that. But.
Wow. Anyways, when we come back, we'll have some unless there's anything else.
No, I think it's.
Yeah, let us know in the comments what you think about Outcasts and role-playing games. What kind of games do Outcasts well? What kind of games don't do Outcasts well? And let us know on social media or in the comments on this page. Yep.
And we'll be back. And don't be an outcast to us.
Ooh. And we're back.
Outcasts no more.
Yeah, I'm not going to be playing Outcast for the that music. That would be a little...
don't do that.
Yeah, copyright infringing. But yeah, we have shout-outs because we do that here. That is the thing that we do.
We like culture.
Yeah, we do. And speaking of culture, my first shout-out is a book.
I've heard of those.
Yeah, the book is called The Devil's Candy. It is a book about the making of the film Bonfire of the Vanities.
Oh, Lord.
Directed by Brian De Palma. And it is starring Tom Hanks and Bruce Willis. Let's see here. Melanie Griffith.
I remember they were really banking that on being their huge hit.
Year. Yeah. So this is a long book, and it goes basically the author had unprecedented full access to everyone. Pre-production, production, and post-production and release of this film. So it goes the entire course, gives the context. It was based on the Tom Wolfe novel, how they chose the director, and all the meetings and the casting, shooting in New York, shooting in LA. It's basically considered one of the best books ever written about the filmmaking process.
It's also why the movie Nothing But Trouble got made too.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, those two movies are directly correlated.
Huh. Interesting. So I'll have to look into that. That's not mentioned in the book. For me, it was really fascinating because I've been involved in films on and off. I've worked in a couple of movies as production assistant, very low level stuff. I made my own movie, Motorhome from Hell. My parents
I was there.
Yeah,
I had unprecedented access too.
You did. Yeah. Where's your tell-all book?
I don't know. I figured
it was a while ago. Yeah.
Most of the stories I could tell would be just a few things I heard. The cameraman say.
Yep. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. But it was really insightful into the filmmaking process. Brian De Palma is an artist who is really focused on his craft and had a vision and tried to make the movie visually engaging and all these hundreds of incredibly talented people, all this money was spent to create this movie that was utterly a failure at the box office. It's been utterly forgotten now. I actually watched it before I read the book, and it was just, oh God, it was a chore to get through. It was not.
Yeah.
But it is all this work, all this massive amount of work, and it's all just been forgotten. And at the end of the book, they talk about how everyone parts ways and they just move on with their lives.
Yeah.
It's like they bonded together. They're working, shoulder to shoulder for months, over a year, and then
it ends.
Then it ends. And in my own life, as trying to make art or trying to create, content, all the sort of compromises and the things that I have to do, the decisions I have to make, and in some way, the people at the very top of their game had the same kind of insecurities, hesitations, oh, what do I do? Every imposter syndrome happens at the very top too, basically.
Oh yeah.
So it's kind of reassuring for me. It's everyone's going through the same shit. It doesn't get easier. It doesn't get you don't get more clarity even at the top. It's in fact, more chaotic, more intense, more uncertain about things. So in some ways it was reassuring to see everyone else is dealing with the same shit I am. It is a fascinating book. I really okay. This, and also I remember all my time on sets and, okay, I could see the same kind of things. Some things haven't changed. I don't know. It was a very meaningful book to me.
And, I also had to go with that. I wouldn't call this a shout out, but, there's a YouTube channel called Good Bad Flicks. They did a full retrospective on Nothing But Trouble. And essentially, that movie was being made by the same company at the same time.
Oh, wait. Oh, Nothing But Trouble. That's the Dan Aykroyd movie. Okay, yeah. They actually do mention at the very end that it was coming out.
Because, the studio was totally banking on Bonfire of the Vanities being their big hit.
Yeah.
And they were also making this movie at the same time, which the cost just kept ballooning out of control.
Yeah.
And I think it was those two movies together helped bring about the downfall of that studio.
Yeah. The reason I found out about this book is a film critic on YouTube, Patrick Willem, did a 20-minute video about one anecdote in the book, talking about there's a 10-second shot of a plane landing, but it's Concorde landing as the sun is setting, and you can see the Empire State Building in the distance. This is before computers; you couldn't CG that.
You had to do it.
Yeah, and so the assistant director basically made a bet with the Brian De Palma, I can make a visually engaging plane landing shot that you will want to see. And he's like, you can't do that. It's cliche. It's boring. And so the assistant director figures it out, takes them like weeks of planning. They have to wait 6 months. There's one time in the year in which you can line up a plane and you can see the Empire State Building in the distance. It's like 15 miles away, but like one time of the year, everything lines up just right.
I've flown into New York, and I know I can visualize the city skyline from both airports.
Yeah. And they had to get permission. They had to get the Concorde pilot. The Concorde pilot had like a 30-second window to land the plane.
Good God.
But they did it. And it got in the movie. And the assistant director had been working for Brian De Palma for years. He was like trying to get his own career as a director. And that career got him meetings with people like, oh, yeah. And I won't spoil how it ends. You should just read the book, or at least look up the assistant director on IMDb. Like, that's the other thing reading this book now. Like, you can just see what happens to all these people's careers. You could talk about like, oh, I want this for my career. I want this. I want to do this. And then you can see, well, did that pay out? Well, we'll see.
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, now, like you can just look it up.
Yeah.
You just look up. What did Brian De Palma do after this? What did Bruce Willis?
Tom Hanks.
Spoiler
alert. Tom Hanks did fine.
He did fine. Yeah, true. Yeah. It's a really, if you're interested into film, like I am, as an art form and as a business, as a craft, as like, art is work. Like, you have to do a lot of work to make anything, even like a simple thing like a book.
Even if you have the natural talent, I'm making air quotes in the air. No, it's still a ass ton of work.
Yeah, even a role playing game is a lot of work to do, and a movie is a lot more work to do because there's hundreds of people involved at the high end.
Usually millions of dollars,
and it's a lot.
And egos.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like, they casting like. Uma Thurman was considered for a role, Melanie Griffith's character, as the mistress, and like it was a whole thing. Yeah, the title comes from like the mistress should be like tempting, like the devil's candy. Like that's something an executive producer says in a meeting. Anyway, I love the book. It took me a while to get through, but it was well worth it.
So, a good story is a good thing.
Yeah, it's a nonfiction book. It's very, very long, but like really good. You had another one?
Yeah, well, mine's a video game.
Yeah.
The kind of video games I'm into normally aren't like the ones a lot of other people are into. I'm way more into simulation games.
I mean, there's a lot of fans of simulation games.
I know, but
you're not like an Outcast.
I know, but in RPPR, not many are into simulation games.
Fair. That's fair.
And I've been playing one. It's called This Grand Life. Because it reminds me a game like when I very first got into PC gaming back in the early 90s. I mean, to me, it was. Before that, it was Nintendo or nothing. But then, I got my first computer. I'm like, you can play games on this thing, and they're even graphically better than the NES. How is that possible? And one of the first games the first game I ever played was Wolfenstein 3D. Second one I ever played was a game called Jones in the Fast Lane, which you can play online now, for free, because it was a game that came on one floppy disk.
Nice.
But essentially, it's just like it's like the first life sim game I can think of. Like, get a job, go to school.
Okay.
And this Grand Life is kind of an updated version of that.
Okay.
So it was very nostalgic for me to kind of go back into my roots of gaming. I started with the Atari 2600, and I thought that would never be beaten. Then I didn't get I got the NES the Christmas after Christmas it came out, so there were still months I was seeing the NES from a distance, and like I think I was like 5 when that came out. Like my brain just couldn't process that, and that was like the PC was the next step, and that was one of the first games I ever played for it.
Okay. I actually for my second shout out was actually also sort of nostalgic for me in a way. It's a video game. It's on Game Pass right now. I have a Game Pass subscription, which I highly recommend if you like, because my games are like. I'm going more like it's got to be simpler. I don't like
no complex, big complex.
No
rules.
big complex games for us. No. I cannot. Yeah, the last big complex game I played was Elden Ring, and it was still like an action game.
How'd that work out for you?
It worked great. I love that game. Game of the decade. I can't. That's as complex as I want to get. So the game I'm shouting out is not Elden Ring. That doesn't need a shout out. It's Infernax. It's a side-scrolling Metroidvania game, very much like Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest. So pixel graphics, day and night mechanics, and you're like this knight who comes back from the Crusades, and guess what? There's evil in his homeland, and he's got to stop.
And you gotta You got to fight that evil, huh?
You got to fight that evil. Lots of hidden subquests and hidden bosses and stuff like that. And you have to go to all these castles, kill the bosses, so you can unlock the final castle to kill the final boss. Yeah, but you get upgrades, spells and items and stuff like that. And there's multiple endings. There's actually 4 or 5 endings, including the secret time travel ending, which I didn't do because that requires beating the game twice.
Yeah, that's a commitment.
It's a commitment, but it was fun. I actually like Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest. This was like same kind of vibe. So,
did you ever play Simon's Castlevania 2 Redacted?
No,
which is like an updated version of Castlevania 2.
Okay,
it's like they fixed all the problems. Like the day to night cycle happens far faster. Villagers actually give you clues.
Is that like a fan thing?
Yeah, it's
okay.
Fan game. I first saw on the Angry Video Game Nerd.
Okay, neat. I'll have to check that out. Actually, I'll just go ahead and give my other video game shout out.
Do it.
It is Trek to Yomi, also on Game Pass. It's also a side-scrolling game, but it's an action game, and it's very stylized as a black and white samurai film.
Oh, nice.
With a film grain. It's very interesting. It's a fighting game too, about timing parries and getting combos in for your sword. Most enemies are killed with 2 hits. You only start with 6 hit points. So it gets restored at checkpoints. So it can be frustrating, but it's very cool. It's very aesthetic. So it's like playing in an old, Yojimbo or, Zatoichi or Kurosawa film kind of thing. So, but yeah, it's definitely a game you want to play with controller and you want to play, you need not perfect timing, but timing those parries helps a lot. So yeah. What's your next shout out?
My next one is a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Now, I know I'm going to say something that might surprise some of our listeners.
Mm-hmm.
I don't drink.
I
didn't know if that was known.
It was,
but
actually, yeah.
Even though I don't drink alcohol, I find the mixing of drinks to be fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of bartending channels out there. There's one guy, it's How to Drink is the name of the channel. And I love the host because he actually makes it interesting. And also he makes drinks from he's an avid role player. He does a lot of cyberpunk games.
Yeah.
So he's done drinks from Skyrim, the cyberpunk game, several from Critical Role.
Okay. Yeah.
So he either recreates already existing formulas that they did, or he'll make a drink based on something.
Mm-hmm.
And also now he's gotten to one of my favorites. He does a thing. There's apparently a Reddit where bartending staff post the receipts for orders they have gotten.
Oh yeah.
And he will recreate that order, and it's some of the most bizarre substitutions or add this or subtract that. We played that one video where he mixed this. I forget what the drink is, but he mixed it, and he's like, "This is like a color out of space."
Oh yeah. He's also done some on making Malort cocktails. So we love Malort here. Yeah.
Well, he did how to use the worst liquor in your liquor cabinet to make something good. There's Kowloon wine, or it's one of the worst things he's ever tasted. Oh yeah, some Chinese liqueurs are ridiculous. Yeah, cool. It's a fun channel. Yeah, check it out. And so there's a lot of bartending channels, but this guy actually he has charisma and he makes it fun. I want to it's a fun channel. I want to mention another book, Weird Tales from a Bangalore, India, in this context. It's a short. There's actually, I believe Patrick on the RPPR Discord linked to it, and I was like, okay, well, it seemed all right. Well, it's cheap on Amazon, so I guess I'll get it. And I bought it, and it's a collection of short stories from this author about weird tales, but set in Bangalore, and they're kind of linked. But it's very liminal horror, very I heard music from my window. It turns out that it's ancient music from this neighborhood that was built over, and it means I'm cursed. Okay, that's fine. And fungal growths in apartment buildings and weird stuff. Nice. It's a fun. Weird tales are different from horror tales because weird tales just kind of happen. They're about the vibes, and there's no horror stories are usually and the bad guy was Dracula because God cursed him. There's a mythology. Weird tales shit just happens,
And it's just like, it kind of ends. Like, you don't necessarily have like that catharsis at the end. It's just
like, dude, this was the event. There you go.
Yeah. Like Serendi Vishtar, god of Red Tooth. It's just like, oh yeah, just pray to a god and you start eating people. Yeah. It's just like, Anyways, cool, weird tales.
Nice.
But you had one more.
I got one more. This is another YouTube channel. It's called Atunche Films.
Oh yeah.
It's a guy. He's a history buff. Does a lot of Civil War stuff. Just some lectures. He has one. It's right where he has a show called Checkmate Lincolnites where he both plays a Union and Confederate arguing about the Lost Cause myth. But also it's like he does a lot of more obscure kind of like lectures. Like he did a really great like almost hour-long thing on plague during Shakespeare's time.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And like, or describing, we were mentioning film, I thought, and he's saying that like Shakespeare was, contemporary commercial entertainment. It wasn't avant-garde at all.
Right.
And he recently did his own crowdfunded movie I think it's called The Sudbury Devil. He's in now editing it, but it's a movie that's set in like the 1600s. And all the language is spoken in original pronunciation, which is a recreation of what the actual like 16th century English accent sounded like.
Okay.
And that's like the first, full length movie that's going to be done entirely in that.
Nice. Yeah. I've watched some of his other videos. I remember one he did on the Pilgrims and their beliefs.
And this guy, he also did a board game on King Philip's War.
Yeah.
I've been very, very fascinated with all of his videos for a while.
Cool. Yeah, you should check it out. I'll put a link to his channel. Finally, I have been watching movies and TV shows just in general. Two that come to mind. One is a HBO show, but it hasn't gotten a lot of notice, I think. Our Flag Means Death. Stars Taika Waititi, directed Thor Ragnarok and been in a ton of stuff. Anyways, it's a pirate show, but it's a comedic pirate show, and it's very funny.
Yeah, pirates are fun.
Pirates are fun. It's about this English noble who wants to be a pirate, and so he just leaves his lands and goes to be a pirate. And then he meets Blackbeard, and then stuff happens.
Oh, actually, that's based on a real pirate. I know, it's Stead Bonnet.
Well, yeah.
And that, I know that's basically what he did, and he encountered Blackbeard as well.
Well, this is also like it's also a very gay show. Like it is.
Oh, sure, yeah. But that's based. It's sounding like it's based on the Stead Bonnet.
I don't remember what the English noble's character name is. I don't know. It might be inspired by because it's definitely it's a very stylized show. It's not historically accurate.
No, I know. It's probably definitely inspired by Stead Bonnet.
Yeah,
for sure. Because he was a lord that became a pirate.
Right. So anyway, it's a fun show. It's very funny, very good acting, and
nice,
very cool. And finally, a movie, The Sadness on Shudder. The warning: this is an incredible level of gore, and like,
you had me at hello.
Yeah, this movie is inspired by the Garth Ennis comics Crossed. If you're familiar with those are X-rated. Like, imagine zombies are just people who have absolutely no chill and they just want to murder and rape and just do horrible things to people. Imagine that's what the virus does to you. And so that's what The Sadness is.
It more just like destroys all your inhibitions
basically.
Are you still alive?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And you can still use tools, you can still talk, you just want to do horrible things to people
with said tools.
Yeah, basically. And this movie was shot in Taiwan, and it's about like what happens if that happens in Taiwan, basically. Like, it's very over the top, like almost comical gore, because it's like at times because a dude gets stabbed in the neck, a normal person, not an infected person, gets stabbed in the neck, and then they cut to a shot of just blood bucketing the ceiling of the just covering the ceiling of the subway train. So it's like,
it's more blood than the human body.
Fire hose blood pressure.
More blood than the human body actually has.
Yeah. People are just drenched in blood, and it's just if you like it. It was Maddie and I and Chris had fun watching it because it was just like, okay, that is a crazy amount of gore. Like, yeah. So but yeah, if it's on Shudder now, if you like those kind of movies. So yeah.
All right, sweet.
But anyways, that ends I think this episode. Or
Hey, if you were an outcast before, now you are part of you're part of our society.
Hey,
now.
if you don't want to be an outcast, join the RPBR Patreon.
Because we have
a great Discord, and we have a community of really cool people who post links
and a compound
and talk
and a compound you can hide out in.
A virtual compound. It's called the Discord server.
Well, everything's the metaverse now, including armed compounds now.
I don't have an armed compound, Tom.
In the metaverse, you do.
Sure.
You have a virtual armed compound.
It's a Discord server. I don't want people to be misunderstand.
I don't see what I don't see what could possibly be misunderstood.
Oh, we also I still stream weekly Sunday nights 6 p.m. to 8 on Twitch with Baz, and that's been fun.
I've joined a time or two.
Yeah, it's been fun. We're probably gonna go over Cyberpunk 3rd edition, the one with the dolls. Yeah. I had to tell Greg Stolze and James Walsh about that. They didn't know about that edition. I sent them pictures of the art, and they're like, "What?" Yeah,
that's not even worthy of.
It is
air quotes. That's I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. Anyway, if you want to see more, check out our live stream. And patrons get access to older live streams.
Patrons get so much.
They get so much. It's so much value. Anyways, that's all for this episode.
It is amazing.
Thank you all for listening. Talk to you later.
See you next time.
Hey, it's Russ Payton talking into a microphone. All right. Blah, 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 blah. Hey.
In this age of digital communications, it is so good to hear a physical voice from human vocal cords. Don't you agree?
I do agree. I am Russ Payton, and I talk into a microphone. All right.
Yeah. There it is.
Yeah.
The pleasing, pleasant sound.
Mm-hmm. All right.